Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Overthinker Guide to Love. My name's Elena and I'm so happy you're here with me today. And I'm just going to jump right into the episode. And there's a certain kind of heartbreak that happens when you realize you're not only losing a person, you're losing the person you thought they were going to become. And I don't think we get to talk about that enough because sometimes when we're devastated over someone, we're not just grieving the relationship we actually had. We're grieving all of the things we thought were eventually going to happen. The trips you talked about taking, the relationship you thought was getting more serious, the version of them that was going to communicate better once they felt more comfortable with you, the version that was going to finally let their guard down, the version that was eventually going to be, oh shoot, this is my person. And then that's when I started thinking about how easy it is to fall in love with the potential of someone and who they could become, because you're not necessarily making everything up. There are real things there. They're sweet, they're funny, you have chemistry. Maybe they open up to you in ways they don't with other people. Maybe you see those little glimpses of the person you think they could be in a relationship. And then your brain takes those little glimpses and starts building an entire person around them. He's not ready right now, but I can see where this could go. He's just going through a lot. He cares about me. He's just bad at showing it. And suddenly you're not dating the person standing right in front of you. You're just dating their potential. And unfortunately, some of us have dated a man's potential harder than we've dated the actual man. And I feel like this happens so easily when somebody gives you just enough for your brain to fill in everything else, especially if you're an overthinker. Because give us three pieces of information and somehow we have completed the whole puzzle by ourselves. Maybe this person tells you they really like you, but they're just inconsistent. Maybe when you're together, everything just feels amazing, but when you're apart, you barely hear from them. Maybe they tell you they're not ready for a relationship right now, but then they treat you like you're in one, or they talk about all these things you guys should do together someday, but somehow, someday never actually makes it into the calendar. And now you're left with all these gaps between what they're saying, what they're doing, and what you want this to become. The problem is our brain does not like those gaps. So we want a story that makes sense. So our brain creates one, or we create one. Instead of thinking maybe he's inconsistent because he just can't give me what I want, we think he's scared. His last relationship really messed him up. He doesn't know how to communicate. He likes me so much that it's freaking him out, which maybe all of that is true, but there's a huge difference between what somebody actually has told you and the explanation you've created for their behavior. And this is where being an empathetic person can really get you into trouble. Because when you care about somebody, of course, you want to understand them. You start thinking about their childhood, their past trauma, their past relationships, their attachment style, their fears, why they shut down when things get serious, what happened to make them act this way, and suddenly you're giving a full psychological case study on why this man hasn't texted you back. Like, girl, he has a phone. And I'm saying that as someone who can absolutely overanalyze why somebody did something. But there comes to a point where understanding someone's behavior turns into excusing their behavior. Those aren't the same things. You can understand why somebody struggles with communication and still decide that you need communication in your life. You can understand why someone's afraid of commitment and still want commitment. You can understand that somebody has been hurt before without volunteering to be the person who waits around until they're ready to love again. And that's really hard when you see the good in somebody, because you keep thinking, I know who he could be, okay? But who is he right now? Not 6 months from now, not after therapy, not after he gets over his ex, not when work calms down, not when he's finally ready. Who is the person in the relationship they're offering you today, right now, at this moment? And honestly, sometimes the relationship where we're asking those questions the most are also the relationships that feel the most intense, which sounds backwards. You would think the person you can't stop thinking about must be the person you have this unbelievable connection with. But sometimes the relationship that makes us feel almost obsessed aren't actually the ones we're happiest in. They're the ones where we're the most uncertain, because think about what happens when somebody is consistent. They text you, they call you, they make plans, they follow through. They know, they like you. You know you're going to see them again. There's not much to analyze about it, which, if you're an overthinker, almost feels suspiciously peaceful in a sense. But then you meet somebody who's incredibly affectionate one day and then distant the next. And you're like, oh, now your brain has a project. You're lying in bed thinking, did I say something? Should I text him? Why did he watch my story but not answer me? He literally was obsessed with me 3 days ago. Maybe he's busy. Then you see him active somewhere. And you're like, okay. So apparently he's not that busy. And suddenly this person is occupying your brain all day. There's actually a psychology behind why that can become so addictive. It is called intermittent reinforcement. Basically, when a reward is unpredictable, we can become even more focused on trying to get it. So when you don't know when the attention is coming back, you start waiting for it. And then they finally text, and you're like, oh my God, you feel relief. There he is. Everything's fine. You get that little high again, and then they pull away. And you start right back where you started. So thinking about someone consistently doesn't necessarily mean they're your soulmate. Sometimes you're not thinking about them consistently because the connection is so incredible. You're thinking about them consistently because this connection is so uncertain. And those things can feel very, very similar when you're inside of it. But uncertainty also leaves room for something else, potential. Because when you don't actually know what's going to happen, your imagination gets to finish the story. And the future version of somebody is kind of perfect when you think about it, because they haven't had the opportunity to disappoint you yet. The future version communicates. The future version is emotionally available. The future version is ready for a relationship right now. The future version realizes how much you mean to them. The future version finally chooses you. And because that person doesn't actually exist yet, you can make them whatever you need them to be at that moment. That's why maybe someday can keep you so attached for so long, because someday doesn't have a deadline. You can wait weeks, months, sometimes years, thinking you're just waiting for somebody to become ready. Meanwhile, your entire relationship is basically being held together by the possibility of what could happen later. And I feel like that's when you eventually have to ask yourself, how long am I willing to love somebody based on something they haven't actually given me? And that question gets even harder when the chemistry is really, really good. Because chemistry makes everything feel meaningful. You think, there's no way I feel this strongly about someone for no reason. And unfortunately, I have bad news. You can have incredible chemistry with somebody who is completely wrong for you. I know, rude. But chemistry and compatibility aren't the same thing. You can laugh with somebody for 6 hours. You can have insane physical chemistry. You can feel like you've known them forever. You can have conversations you've never had with anyone else. You can genuinely care about each other. And they can still be incapable of giving you that kind of relationship you want, you need. That's the part that makes walking away so confusing, because we convince ourselves that if the relationship didn't work, then maybe the connection wasn't real. But both things can be true. The connection can have been completely real, and the relationship can still not work. Maybe they did care about you. Maybe you did have something special. Maybe those moments meant exactly what you thought they meant. That still doesn't guarantee that this person can build a healthy relationship with you. And I think this is why we have to stop judging relationships by their best moments. Because obviously the best moments were good. That's why you stayed. Nobody is sitting around heartbroken thinking, God, I never forget that completely Medicore Tuesday we spent together. No, you're remembering the night you stayed up talking until 4 in the morning, the way they looked at you, the really thoughtful thing they did, the conversation where they really finally opened up to you, the time they told you they've never felt this way before. And those moments do matter, but they're moments. What tells you more is the pattern. Do they consistently communicate with you? Do they make an effort to see you? Do their actions match what they're telling you? When something gets uncomfortable, do they communicate or disappear? Do you feel secure around them more often than you feel confused? Because sometimes we'll hold on to 5 amazing moments while ignoring 50 moments that made us question where we stood. And then we say, but you don't understand our connection. Maybe the connection was real. That doesn't automatically mean the relationship wasn't healthy. That doesn't automatically mean the relationship was healthy either. And recognizing doesn't mean you have to make them the bad guy either. Okay, I feel like we've created this idea that in order to walk away from somebody, we have to prove they did something terrible. They cheated, they lied, they're toxic, they're a narcissist, they're emotionally unavailable, they're the villain. But sometimes they're just not the person for you. They're not the person for you. And I honestly think that it can be harder to accept. Because somebody can be a genuinely good person and still not be capable of loving you in the way you need to be loved. Somebody can care about you and still not choose you. Somebody can have good intentions and still hurt you. Somebody can be going through something difficult and you can have empathy for them while also realizing that their situation is hurting you. You don't have to hate somebody to leave them. You don't. And you don't have to turn them into a bad person just so you can justify choosing yourself. So here's something I've been trying to look at differently. Instead of thinking, could this eventually become the relationship I want? Take away the future for a second. Take away the potential. Take away everything they've said they're going to do. And look at exactly what exists right now. Same communication, same effort, same emotional availability, same level of commitment, same consistency. Nothing improves, nothing gets worse, this is it. Would you still choose this relationship? Because if the answer is no, then you're not actually choosing the relationship you have. You're choosing the relationship you're hoping it becomes. And that is really a hard thing to admit, especially after something ends. Because now you're not only trying to let go of the person, you're trying to let go of everything you thought was going to happen with them. And maybe that's why sometimes we can miss somebody so badly, even when logically we know the relationship wasn't going to give us what we needed. When you say, I miss him, what exactly are you missing? Do you miss the relationship you actually had? Or do you miss what you thought was about to happen? Do you miss how he was consistently treating you? Or do you miss those moments when he gave you a glimpse of how you wish he would treat you all the time? Do you miss him? Or do you miss the future you created around him? Because sometimes we're grieving a relationship that never actually existed in the form we're remembering it. We're grieving possibility, and a possibility is incredibly hard to let go of because there's no proof that it wouldn't have worked. Your brain can always come back with, but what if I waited? What if he had changed? What if the timing was different? What if he comes back? And maybe he does. People change. People change. Timing changes. Life is weird. Sometimes people do find their way back to each other. But you can't build your current life around a future version of somebody else. And I don't think the lesson is that we stop seeing potential in people. I actually think seeing the best in people is a beautiful quality. I don't want to disappoint. I don't want disappointment to turn me into someone who automatically assumes the worst in everybody. But there's a difference between seeing someone's potential and making decisions based on it. Love should leave room for people to grow. It shouldn't require you to consistently imagine a better version of somebody just to make the relationship feel okay. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, but I know who he could be, or bring yourself back to who is he being right now in this moment. Because potential can tell you where somebody might go. Patterns tell you where they are. And you deserve to make a decision about your heart based on what somebody's actually giving you, not just what you hope they'll eventually learn how to give. And if this episode, it made you immediately think of a person, I'm not saying you were dating their potential, but maybe sit with this one a little more. And if you want to share this with your friends, your family, maybe your boyfriend or someone you're talking to, go ahead, share it. Maybe they can benefit from this. Who knows? But until next time, be gentle with your heart and curious with your minds. Bye. See you next week.